All right, so hello everyone and welcome. Welcome to my home here in Western Massachusetts. My name is Craig Fear. I'm a nutritional therapist, and this is video number one in a three-part video series for how to restore digestive wellness. My intention with these videos is to get you started on the basics of improving your digestive health. And each video is going to cover a different aspect of digestive health, and I'll give you a short overview of that real soon. But real quick, just to tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'll shut this webcam off and get into the material. So I'm a certified nutritional therapist, and I have a private practice here in Western Massachusetts where I see clients in person. My practice is called Pioneer Valley Nutritional Therapy because I live in the Pioneer Valley, which is another name for the Connecticut River Valley here in Western Mass. And I specialize in digestive issues, and I've been helping folks for, about 7 years now. I've written an ebook on heartburn called the 30-Day Heartburn Solution. I have an active blog called Fearless Eating. I just love that name. Where I blog on a number of different digestive health topics. I share a lot of recipes on the blog. And you can find that at www.fearlesseating.net, not .com, .net. And I also created an online digestive wellness program called Fearless Digestion. It's 8 in-depth modules that address the underlying causes of digestive problems and how to correct them through proper nutrition. So if you're interested in that after this video series, you feel like you need a little bit more support and guidance, I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. But the reason I got into this line of work is that I suffered with my own digestive problems for many years. I had chronic bloating, intestinal pain. I would just feel very heavy after meals. I wasn't digesting my food well. Food would just sit in my stomach for hours. I wasn't hungry for the next meals. And doctors had no answers for me. They couldn't help me at all. So when I found this whole world of traditional foods, which I'm going to tell you about, it made just a dramatic difference in my digestive health. And my digestive issues, they just slowly waned over time. And it took a while. At some people, it happens relatively quickly. But little by little, I started noticing improvements. I stuck with it. And now I help people with this traditional foods approach. So let me click off the webcam here and we'll get into the PowerPoint material. So it's okay. All right, so here we go. Let's start in with video number one. So here's my blog name up here, and that's my blog logo, Fearless Eating, Traditional Food for Modern Times. And this is video number one. Now let me just quickly review the video series and what each video is going to cover. So this is video number one, which is the why of poor digestive health, why poor digestive health happens. And it's a two-part video today. Part one is going to be how digestion works, and part two is going to be why things go wrong. And this is going to create a good foundation to understand the what. And that's exactly what to eat and why. And next video, we'll really get into the specifics, and I'll detail what I call the 5 pillars of traditional foods. Foods that few people are eating anymore, that are not easy to find in supermarkets, although not impossible, and that can really help restore a good digestive health. So these foods are not commonly recommended by doctors or health organizations or really anyone in the media. In fact, these outlets often scare people away from them. So today's video is going to help you be more confident when we get to video number two. So video number three will be the how, which is how to take these traditional foods and make them practical and economical in the context of our crazy modern day lives. And I'm going to share a video for how to make one of these 5 food pillars at home in a very time efficient way, and that will save you money. So let's start with today's video, video number one, why poor digestive health happens. And again, this is part one where we're going to understand how digestion is supposed to work. So now let me start out by saying that I'm going to keep this very simple. This is probably the most technical I'll get with these next few slides, but we're not going to get into complicated biochemistry or anything like that. So here's a little picture of our digestive tract. And first things first, the most important thing to understand when it comes to how digestion works is that digestion is a north to south process. Digestion flows like a river. So what happens upstream influences what happens downstream. So in the case of our digestion, many problems that develop in our intestines have their origin upstream in the digestive tract. So for simplicity's sake, there are three phases of digestion that I want to go through, and three analogies that can help us understand their most basic function. So the upper GI here on the upper right is essentially our stomach. And the analogy I like to make is that it's like a blender. So if I take my little pointer here, this is our stomach here, over here. And then we have our middle GI, which is our small intestine. And the analogy I like to make is that it's like a sponge, and the small intestine is the coiled tube in here. And then we have our lower GI, which is our large intestine. And I'll explain what these analogies mean in just a minute. And that analogy I like to make is that it's like a rainforest. And this kind of blue tube here that ascends up, transverses over, and descends down, that is our large intestine. Okay, so let's understand what I mean by each of these analogies and what each of these sections of the digestive tract do, what their function is. So the stomach. The stomach is like a blender, and the primary role of our stomach is to break down our food. And the stomach does this via hydrochloric acid, or HCl, and you could say that HCl drives the speed of the blender. We have millions of acid-producing cells in the lining of our stomach that begin the process of digesting our food and breaking down our food into its most basic parts. So the key point here is that the blender speed needs to be on high. In other words, we need strong HCl production to have strong digestive fire so that food can be broken down properly so that other phases of digestion further south can happen efficiently. So when food leaves the stomach, it's like the consistency of, say, like a pea soup. Kind of gross, I know, but that's kind of how it is. And then it enters the duodenum, which is the top part of the small intestine. And this is where we get some additional input from the pancreas and the gallbladder. So let's see, if I were just to go back, I'll just show you real quick. So the pancreas is the kind of little yellow gland here that sits below the stomach. The gallbladder is the little blue sac here that sits below the liver. So essentially everything up here is the upper GI. This is our liver up here. And it makes bile, which gets stored in our gallbladder. So when food moves into the top part of the small intestine and duodenum, the gallbladder adds in bile, which helps break down our fats, and the pancreas adds digestive enzymes, which further breaks down our foods. So when things are working well, our food is thoroughly broken down by the time it leaves the stomach and ready now for the middle GI, for the middle part of the digestive tract. So let's keep going further south into our small intestine. And our small intestine is like a sponge, and I'll explain that in a minute. So the primary role is absorption, and to absorb the nutrients that have been broken down into their most basic form from the upper GI so they can easily pass through the intestinal wall where they can enter the bloodstream and are carried to all the cells of the body for nourishment and energy. Now, if you were to look at the small intestine with the naked eye, it would look like a hollow tube. However, if you were to look at it with a microscope, you'd see that the lining of the small intestine is made up of millions of tiny finger-like projections called intestinal villi over here, or microvilli. And these villi, what they do is they increase the surface area for more efficient absorption of our food. So if you were to take the small intestine out of your body and unfold it, and unfold all those millions of microvilli, lay them flat, it would cover the surface area of a tennis court. I mean, that's how tightly compacted our small intestine is. Now, this is a very delicate lining, and kind of like a sponge, and it acts similarly to a sponge. So if you were to pass water through a sponge, any particles larger than the water would not pass through. So similarly, when food's broken down properly in the upper GI, only those nutrients that are in their most basic form can pass through the lining of the small intestine. So fatty acids are broken down from fats, and amino acids from larger proteins, simple sugars from carbohydrates, and anything larger like fiber, other waste materials, they keep moving through into the next phase of digestion. So let's keep going further south into the large intestine. And the analogy here is that it's like a rainforest. So the primary role is symbiosis. And what I mean by symbiosis is that the bacteria that live in our large intestine, they need to live in harmony with each other. So this is the most fertile region in our body. It's teeming with trillions of bacteria. We have 10 times more bacteria that live in our gut than we have cells in our body. I'm always amazed when I read that, just to think about that. So on some level, we're actually more bacterial than human cells. Kind of crazy to think about that. So the analogy I'm going for here is that this region in our body, it's similar to the rainforests of planet Earth, in that they're also the most fertile regions of our planet. And they contain an incredible diversity of life, and that diversity is essential to keeping not only the rainforests themselves healthy, but it also keeps our planet healthy as well. We know the rainforests influence things like weather patterns around the globe, and that there are serious consequences to clear-cutting the rainforest and destroying that diversity of life. So there's about 500 known species of gut bacteria, and they're not all beneficial to us. In fact, about 80-85% are beneficial, and about 10 to 15% are 15 to 20% are pathogenic. Now, when they're healthy and thriving, when they're in symbiosis, not dysbiosis, that 15 to 20% bad bacteria, they won't cause problems. They're kept in check by the good bacteria. Now, as creepy as all this may sound, we have all these bacteria swimming around in us. The fact remains that we can't live without them, and they play vital roles in keeping us healthy. It's a mutually beneficial relationship, and this is very much a new frontier of science, and we've only really scratched the surface of what they do. So let me just hit on a few of these roles of gut bacteria. So they take the waste material that moves through from the small intestine, and they manufacture B vitamins and vitamin K from it. They keep the bowel wall healthy. They prevent infection. So when this bacterial ecosystem is healthy, it creates a very inhospitable environment for other pathogens. They promote immune health. We have about 70 to 80% of our immune system embedded in our gut wall, and they communicate with our immune system to keep it strong, keep it healthy. They promote endocrine health and regulate metabolism. So many people today have thyroid problems. So the thyroid gland is responsible for a healthy metabolism, and we have about 20% of our thyroid hormone is converted into its active form, which is T3, but by our gut bacteria. So poor diet, which we'll learn about next time, can really screw up our gut bacteria and, of course, influence a lot more than just our digestive health. So let's move into, do I have one more? I do have one more. So, and it helps regulate our bowel movements as well. Okay, so now let's move into part 2, which is understanding why things go wrong. And we're going to go through the digestive tract again, from north to south, starting with the upper GI again. So upper GI malfunction, and what we're talking about here is when the blender slows down. So here are some of the symptoms that happen when that HCl, that hydrochloric acid, doesn't get produced efficiently to digest our food. We get bloating, bad breath, belching, we feel nauseous, we have stomach pains, and we feel like skipping meals. All of these things happened to me when I had my digestive problems. So again, that HCl, it's not getting produced efficiently, and it's like that blender speed going from high to medium to low. This is known as a hypochlorhydria, which is basically low acid production. And in some people, that blender is completely turned off, which is known as achlorhydria, no hydrochloric acid production. And then we get all these symptoms. We can also get heartburn and GERD. GERD stands for gastroesophageal reflux disease, and it's a more chronic form of heartburn or acid reflux. So heartburn is basically when some stomach acid refluxes into the esophagus. If it only happens on occasion, we get heartburn. But if it happens chronically, it can scar the lining of the esophagus, and doctors can see that with a scope, and this is known as GERD. Now, these two are so common today that I want to take a minute and explain it, because what we're told from our doctors and from TV commercials and, of course, the pharmaceutical companies is that the root cause of heartburn and GERD is the overproduction of stomach acid. And That makes some intuitive sense, right? I mean, if there's some burning, it stands to reason that it's because there's too much acid. But this may sound crazy, but it's actually the opposite reason. Now, keep in mind that our stomach is a warm, moist environment. It's almost 100 degrees inside of us. So when HCl is not produced well, food's going to sit in our stomach, start to ferment, expand, it gives off gases. Some of that food, which mixes with the HCl, can reflux back into the esophagus. And so the esophagus does not have a protective mucosal layer. So when that acid hits the lining, it burns. And boy, do we feel it, right? So the problem with these acid blockers today is that they work really well. They actually do work. They take away the burning. Things like Prilosec, Nexium, Pepsid, there's so many of them. They shut down the acid-producing cells of the stomach. But they don't solve the underlying problem. And this is why folks who take acid blockers have to continually take them. As soon as they stop taking those medications, the acid reflux comes right back. This is a dream scenario for pharmaceutical companies, right? People have to continually stay on these things, and people take them for decades. But these drugs, they exacerbate the low acid environment, and they set up a cascade of problems further south. Like so many drugs, right? They solve one problem and create 5, 10, 15 more problems. But we can learn to restore proper acidity through proper diet. So many people I work with are able to stop their acid blocking medications. All right, so let's move on. I just want to spend a few minutes on that one because they're just so common today. We can get gastritis in the upper GI. That's inflammation in the lining of the stomach. And of course, all of this sets the stage for further intestinal problems. So let's keep going south into the middle GI, so middle GI malfunction. So now, when the sponge gets leaky. So now we have all this undigested food that starts to assault the lower intestines. This is exacerbated not just by upper GI malfunction, but also these modern day frankenfoods that are a standard part of most people's diets today. And I'm not just talking about things like Twinkies and Fruit Loops and other junk food, but also lots of common other health foods that are really not health foods, but people think they are, and are just eating a tremendous amount of these poor quality foods today. And we'll explore that in the next video. So a combination of poor digestive fire and poor diet are setting up this condition known as leaky gut. And that's where improperly digested food assaults the lining of the small intestine and leaks through and gets into the bloodstream and wreaks havoc with our immune system. Because keep in mind, 70% of our immune system is located in the wall of our small intestine. So if things get through that shouldn't, your immune system becomes activated and reacts to what it sees as foreign. And this is one of the reasons we have this epidemic of food sensitivities today. Some people call them food intolerances. They're very similar. These are immune reactions to improperly digested food with all sorts of different symptoms. And it's kind of like a leaky gut and food sensitivities are a bit like of a chicken and egg scenario. Which comes first, the leaky gut or the food sensitivities? They kind of go hand in hand. And same for these next two, which is SIBO and IBS. SIBO stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. IBS, which is so common today, irritable bowel syndrome. They are both often connected by gut bacteria imbalances, where those 15 to 20% pathogenic bacteria are given an opportunity to thrive through poor diet and lifestyle. Both of these are united by intestinal bloating, gas, irregular bowel movements. We get inflammation. Conditions that end in the letters ITIS are inflammatory issues like ileitis, colitis, so many of them, ulcerative colitis, diverticulitis, also includes Crohn's disease, and many autoimmune issues as well. They have their origin, actually, many of them, in poor digestive function. Again, that there's an intimate connection between our gut health and our immune health, and it often starts with years of poor digestion. So let's keep moving further south into the lower GI. So when the rainforest loses its diversity. So now this improperly digested food starts to cause problems in the lower GI. And in particular, poor diet and digestive function, again, similar in the small intestine, causes shifts in that good to bad bacteria ratio. And we lose that diversity of good, of that of that ratio, and we lose the good bugs, the good bacteria. So we get an overgrowth of pathogenic bacteria, which leads to things like chronic yeast and fungal infections, candida, which is an overgrowth of a yeast, very common in women, very difficult to bring under control, constipation and diarrhea, more inflammation, excess gas. So let's briefly take a look at the chief culprits here and what causes poor digestive function. So what causes poor digestive function? So probably number one at the top of the list, and this probably won't be earth-shattering information, but the overconsumption of sugar causes so many problems in our digestive tract. And so many people eating just unbelievable amounts of sugar today without them even realizing it. It's just become such a common part of our food supply that many people have a sweet tooth without even kind of realizing it. Many people do realize it and do know that sugar addiction is another big problem for people. That people are aware of just how much sugar they eat, but they just have a hard time avoiding it because it's so common. It's in so many foods. It's not far away. It's in your fridge. It's in, you can just run down to the gas station, the local store, get your ice cream, get your sugar fix. It causes so many problems in how our digestive system works. Similarly, overconsumption of processed foods. That'll be made more clear next video where we go and not just the Twinkies and the Fruit Loops and all that junk food, but some less commonly known processed foods. Overconsumption of alcohol. Improperly prepared foods. I'll explain that in detail. That'll be very clear in the next video. Medications, antibiotics, sometimes we have to take them, but they don't discriminate from the good bugs and the bad bugs. They often kill the bad bugs, but at the same time wipe out a lot of good bacteria as well. And people take those antibiotics, repeated rounds, years upon years of those things. Acid blockers, which we talked about. So many other medications can cause shifts in how our digestive system works. Steroids, birth control, that's just a very short list. And of course, stress. All of these things, what they do is they lower the blender speed of the stomach. They cause bloating and heartburn. They set up bacterial imbalances throughout the small intestine and large intestine. They contribute to SIBO and IBS and candida. They cause inflammation, gastritis, colitis, diverticulitis, on and on. But from a nutrition perspective, there is so much we can do with food to reestablish good digestive health. So the question is, and we're just about done here, coming to the last few slides. So the question is, how to fix this, right? And the answer, at least on the surface, is easy. The answer is traditional foods. Now, hold off on what you think I might mean by traditional foods. It's funny, a few weeks ago, I was meeting with a client, and after I explained what traditional foods were to her, she said, I'm glad you explained that to me because I didn't really know what you meant. In my head, I'm thinking, does he mean Italian food? Kind of made me laugh. No, not really Italian food. So I'll tell you next time what I mean by it, and I promise you it's probably not what you think. And it's because these foods are relatively unknown by doctors and the general public. They're relatively difficult to find in most conventional supermarkets, though the good news is that's slowly changing. In fact, one of them is as of yet unavailable anywhere. You have to know how to make it yourself. Little hint on that: your grandmother or maybe your great grandmother, they made it all the time, and it's not complicated to make. So let me just give you a little preview of video number 2, and then we'll end video number 1 here. So video number 2, just a preview. We're going to tell the story of one man who can once and for all tell us what to eat and why. That might sound crazy, but there's one man who in the early part of the 20th century did some unbelievable, fascinating research and will help us understand really what traditional foods are and why they're so beneficial to us. Then I'm going to detail them. I'm going to talk about the 5 foods that promote digestive health and 5 foods that damage digestive health. So that's going to be next time. Looking forward to that video. Really love the material coming forth here. Look for it in your inbox. It should be coming shortly. Now, if for whatever reason you found this video through a blog, maybe one of my blogs, or maybe on YouTube, you can sign up to get all 3 videos. There should be a link at the bottom of the blog or in the description in the video where you can click to sign up to get all 3 videos. So I'll end there and say thanks for tuning in, and really looking forward to the next video. So look for it soon, and I will see you real soon. Okay.